As a Christian working woman, you have many roles, from your responsibility with family and friends to community and work. How do you connect all that you do with all that you are and still have your faith shine through? It's a challenge, but you are up to it. The She Works for Him podcast is the gathering place to empower Christian working women to live out their calling at work by connecting them to God, resources, and each other through powerful faith stories from other working sisters in Christ. Welcome to She Works for Him.
You've tuned into She Works for Him, where we connect Christian working women to God, resources, and one another. Welcome to our show today, and we are your hosts today, Martha Brangenberg and Catherine Gates. You can remember that we are always on YouTube. You can go there and subscribe so you get notifications every time there's a new show, but we do release on Mondays, so that is kind of a good little thing to keep in your mind. But of course, the beauty of technology is you can go back at any time and catch those shows that you might have missed, and also share them with a friend. Because one of the things, when I said we connect each other to God, resources, and one another, the resources part, that's where God gives us the ability. We may see something. It's one thing to see something on sale somewhere and tell a friend. How much more value is there in sharing a God story with a friend, and how that may be an impact to them? So stay connected with us at sheworksforhim.com. Sign up for our weekly emails so you know when the next show is releasing. And we are so glad you're here with us for today.
Thanks, Martha. Hey, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI as it's called, is a very frequent topic of discussion these days. It's such a big deal, actually, that there's been a significant increase in the number of senior executive positions created to oversee this focus for many companies. But are they focused on the right strategies? How do we create workplace cultures that are not only diverse, but also value all employees, regardless of ethnicity, skin color, gender, or diversabilities? Even for those doing it well, there is no easy, all-encompassing solution. All the more reason to press into it deeply. Shalynne Jackson didn't set out to have a career in diversity and inclusion. You could say it found her. After years of working in the corporate world, Shalynne recognized the need and fell in love with DEI work. Today, Shalynne is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Oklahoma City. Her passion is to help organizations understand how to create truly equitable cultures in which everyone can thrive and do their jobs to the best of their abilities. Shalynne, welcome to She Works for Him.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so glad that this worked out, and I'm so grateful that God brought our paths together. Shalynne, yeah, thank you. We definitely want to talk about how you connect your faith to your work. But first, Shalynne, can you tell us, how did you become a follower of Jesus?
Absolutely. So, like many, I grew up in a home where, Jesus, God, we're a Christian home. And so I say, like many people, your faith comes from your upbringing most times. That said, I really became a follower of Christ on my own, and really built my own relationship with God when I was going through a really tough time in college. So tough that I remember calling my grandparents, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, can you help? I don't know why I did this, but I was like, can you help me find a cross necklace? Because I just want to know he's always with me. And they went searching, and we found the perfect one at JCPenney. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised I don't have it on today, because most days I do. This one just goes with my outfit. But I say that because that was all the way in college, but that necklace has just always been a part of my story. And I really do feel he carried me through that really hard time. I really had to pray my way through that time. And that's when I really felt the love of Jesus, or the love of God, just wrap me through a really tough situation. And so that's when my own relationship developed outside of, my grandparents and my mom.
And that's so important that we do have our own relationship, right? And he does use the hard circumstances to really, because we're so crazy. We don't go there on our own, do we? We need that push.
Yeah. And what's unfortunate for me, especially at that time, was I always knew who he was. Like I said, I grew up. But I do find myself, that wasn't the only hard time I've ever been in. And I often get upset with myself because I'm like, that is when I seek him the most, is when I'm going through hard times. And I'm like, you need to be consistent. Obviously, I'm always a consistent follower, but this like praying my way through it, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time. It's like, talk to him when you're good too.
Yeah.
Yes. That's so good. That's so good. And during our workday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Shalynne, when did you realize your work matters to God? How did God get your attention at work?
I will tell you. So I was already in the space, and someone came to me, and I'll just say this was around June. So it's Pride Month. And someone came to me and said, I know that you are a believer and you are a lover of Christ. And I need to know, how can you be a Christian and also support the LGBTQ community? And I looked at that person and I said, God gave me one responsibility, and it's to love. And that was it. Later on, she and I had more conversations over lunch, and, but really, I know that's me. It feels like I'm oversimplifying it, but to me, that is the answer. No matter the community, no matter what, he gave me one responsibility, and I get to do that through my work.
I love that so much, because we are not called to judge other people, right? We are called to love other people. How else are they going to know Jesus? I love that.
Yeah, I want them to see his love and light through me.
And you get that opportunity in so many different ways, but we have 24/7 every day, every week, to be the light of Christ everywhere that we go. And that includes our work. And we just keep trying to verbalize that, because so many of us, for whatever reason, segment that and keep it separate. And that is not the way God intended. So Shalynne, as a Christian working woman, tell me, what has been your biggest struggle? And you can emphasize whichever of those words. Is it because of being a Christian, a working, or a woman? But all together.
I'll tell you that really none of my identity for me. I want to be really clear that this is for me, but I think it's just how I view things and view what's supposed to be a challenge. None of my identity is what holds me back now. I say now because you can see I have alopecia. You can see I'm bald, and I'll tell you I'm bald because I have alopecia. With alopecia, I guess you can say maybe it's the part about being a woman, because growing up, it was society says your crown is your glory, right? Your hair is your glory. You have to have hair to be pretty. You have to have hair to be successful. And so for the longest, that's what's held me back. I wore wigs. I hid, I covered. Again, wearing wigs is not a problem. It's whenever I didn't want to wear wigs anymore, but I felt confined by them because I felt that was the only way I was going to succeed. And so I guess you can say that at that time, as a woman, it was hard, because it was like, I want to be able to walk in my truth. But the day that I did, oh my goodness, it was so freeing. I remember that Thursday like it was just yesterday, and could go into that story another time, but it was so freeing. And now I look back, and I used to feel like, the devil gave me alopecia, and this was supposed to be a part of my journey. I wouldn't have it any other way. Would it be nice to wear a ponytail one day? Maybe, I don't know. But I really wouldn't have it any other way, because of, really, I'm a walking testimony. People can look at me and not even talk to me and see strength. And I say that because people have told me that. Like, I don't know why you're bald, but, look to be so strong. And I hope to be able to do that one day. They don't even know my story.
Right.
So really what people are able to see in me, really I get to really be a walking testimony for him without ever talking to anyone.
So Shalynne, do you also see that then as your biggest victory?
I will say that. And I also say when it comes to being Christian, especially in Oklahoma, I think that is one of my biggest victories, because I'm able to leverage my privilege. A lot of times in the D&I space, privilege is a trigger word for people, and we use it to like beat people up with. And that is not how privilege should be seen. But, being in Oklahoma, most people are Christian. And so really I get to leverage my privilege of instantly connecting with other Christians to talk about my work and to talk about the love of Christ and how I'm able to do that through my work, and then try to compel them to do the same, because you don't have to be a D&I officer to make sure that everyone feels included, loved, valued, respected. And so for me, my biggest victory is being Christian in my work.
Wow. Amen to that. That's awesome. You just said a mouthful there. Well, we have to take a quick break, but you're listening to She Works for Him with your hosts, Martha Brangenberg and Catherine Gates. And we will be right back to hear more from Shalynne Jackson.
Did you know that God has a calling on your life? It's true. He's called you to bring Jesus to the world. For some, that may look like a pulpit or a foreign mission field, but for most of us, it looks like a construction site, a cubicle, a hospital, or a classroom. Wherever it is that you work, live, volunteer, and invest, that is your mission field. To learn more about integrating your faith into your work and retirement, check out our books, I Work for Him, She Works for Him, and I Retire for Him, by going to iworkforhim.com/bookstore.
Welcome back to She Works for Him with your hosts, Martha Brangenberg and Catherine Gates. We are talking to Shalynne Jackson. And oh my gosh, Shalynne, I just can't wait to dive deeper into what you've been sharing. So Martha, you had a question for Shalynne.
I do. So I'm really curious what you see as one of the biggest challenges of really making that equitable and inclusive culture inside organizations.
It's going to feel like I'm oversimplifying this work again, and it's not simple work. I want to be really clear, but it's the lack of empathy. We really don't have empathy for people nowadays. If we were really sit and try to empathize and connect with people, the lack of connectedness, we're not really wanting to connect with people to really understand each other. To then, when you care about someone, it's really hard to exclude them. And in order to care, we have to try to develop that empathy for other people.
That's so good. And it's one thing to say that, and I totally agree with you. But gosh, how can we help people understand that? What do we need to include in our DEI strategies so that they can be more successful and people can see, more people can see their part in making that happen?
Well, one of the things is we need to start with the basics. We really, nowadays, the world just wants to take people to the tough stuff really quickly. And unfortunately, it would be nice if we could do this fast, but you can take people too fast on this journey and you can go too slow for some. And so you got to find the sweet spot. And so, what is it that we can do? Start with the basics. Tell people what in our organization, what are we trying to achieve with D&I? Because if you don't, they're going to create their own narrative and their own story. And oftentimes that story is coming from the media or the news or whatever that is about how you should feel about inclusion. I could go on and on even about how when I got my role, people saying, sending emails and you need to fire her because D&I is all about XYZ. And it's like, one, remember, here goes the empathy. I'm a human on the other side of that email. First of all, it's like they're saying fire her and you don't even know me. And it wasn't, I did also have to remember, it wasn't me that they had a problem with. But it was the work. And so to your point, it's really connecting people to the basics of what are you trying to do here? And many people will get on board, but you can't just jump into the hard stuff.
So that's a really good point. I mean, I do think everybody needs to take responsibility, right? And especially those of us who recognize, and the Christians in the workplace who recognize the importance of loving everyone. And so what can each person do to participate, aside from waiting for certain, policies to be passed or, training to be implemented? What can each of us do to participate in creating a more equitable culture?
I'm really glad that you said that, because first of all, a lot of people do wait on what's the next thing that D&I and or HR, depending on, how it's structured in your organization, what are they going to roll out? No. There are free trainings, podcasts like this. Right? Go to
That's
YouTube,
right.
Go see what it is that people, are saying. Go educate yourself so people can be educated themselves. And then on top of that, when you talk about policies, be advocate. Because a lot of times our leadership team either isn't thinking about it because they're thinking about other things, or they need to know that it's important to a lot of people. And so when we can be allies and advocates for, so I'll give you a quick example. Men, even though men sometimes feel they're not affected by parental leaves, even though they are, because parental leave should say the man can be home too for just as much as the mom. Right. They feel they're not impacted by that. Don't wait until you are impacted for it to matter to you. Be an advocate for it now. Because even if you never decide to have children or you don't want to take a leave or whatever, if you're a people leader, you're going to be leading women. See what's important to your people. See what's important to other people. Empathize and really lean in to lead that change and drive that policy. Like, don't wait for someone else to be the reason the policy changes. You go talk to your leadership team.
So good.
There's so many things I'm sitting here going, I want to ask this. I want to ask this. And, one of the things I have learned over the years, just in my own life, is when I meet someone and I build a relationship with them and they have something that I've never experienced before, whether it is a brace on their leg because something doesn't work right, or whatever their thing, is that they have to deal with that I've never dealt with before. I always try to just think, man, what does their day look like? How does that affect, their everyday? And I just think those little things in our head that we don't even think about. We just think, well, I don't understand why this person is walking slow in front of me. Well, okay, let's take a look at the situation, and then go from there. And it could be those little things in life that help us with the bigger issues. So I want you to imagine one of your toughest days at work, Shalynne, and what does it look like for you to lean into God as you do your work on that toughest day?
Tell you, on a really tough day, I'm calling my favorite prayer warrior, and it's my grandma. Just to be completely transparent, I will never be too old to call grandma.
Yes,
that's awesome.
You did right me. But beyond that, I will say, first of all, when you go back to my privilege, I have the privilege of being able to have crosses in my office and just really have that visual reminder of like whose I am, who I am, and why I'm here. Right. So I just can always have my necklace and things like that. But beyond that, for me, to be completely transparent with you, I remember my children when I really need to dig down deep to be like, why am I doing this? Because there's hard days. OK, this work is not easy. People are mean. People are nasty. I remember my children who I'm doing this for, and I really, really hope that when they're older, some of the stuff we're not talking about it anymore.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. That is a great dream. And, it's similar in the sense that that's why we do this podcast. We hope that there's a day where people, there's not a separation of our work and our faith, and we're not even needing to have that conversation because we're living integrated lives. So, Shalynne, where do you go to get encouragement for living out your faith at work, whether it's an organization or a person? I love that your grandma is such a big part of your foundation. Everybody needs a praying grandma like that. But where else do you go?
I'll tell you, this one it's kind of the answer is not straightforward, because what I like to say is I really feel that Jesus was the first D&I practitioner. He would go to places that other people wouldn't go. Oh. He would talk to people that other people wouldn't talk to. Yep. I am not comparing myself to Jesus. I want to be really clear that I am human and all flesh, right? But what I'm saying is I'm reminded oftentimes that you're doing the tough stuff. You're going to places that people wouldn't go. And so some on the hard days when people misunderstand your work or whatever, you got to give them grace. You got to really, now what I try to do, y'all, is in a situation like that, I'm like, we're going to be best friends. We're going to be best friends. I really will say that to those that are close to me. I've even told my boss that, it's no problem. We're going to be best friends. And that really is my goal, to be like, you're going to love me and I already love you. And I don't try to force myself on people, but I really try to, again, not oversimplify it or add too much humor, because it's not, sometimes it's not a time to play, but really to just say there's something there. There's a reason why this person isn't connecting with this work. There's a reason why this person is afraid or doesn't understand. And instead of discrediting this person, at some point we're going to connect. I make it my goal to connect with someone.
And God's going to Yes. God's going to honor that too, right? I just love the image of Jesus. Really, he's the example to follow, right? To just keep thinking of him as the first DEI, the first true DEI, leader. And I just, that picture really resonates. Shalynne, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to She Works for Him with your hosts, Martha Brangenberg and Catherine Gates, and our guest, Shalynne Jackson. We'll be right back.
As women, we like to share our special finds with others. That new little shop we just discovered, or a favorite brand that is having a sale. Well, I have a special find for you. The Awaken Podcast Network is a collection of podcasts gathered onto a digital platform with you in mind. No more searching and wondering if the content is relevant. The work has already been done. Awaken Podcast Network even has smaller collections of podcasts focused on specific topics, including a collection called She Works for Him, dedicated to content for Christian working women. So go ahead, unlock God's purpose for your work, and check out awakenpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome back to She Works for Him with your hosts, Martha Brangenberg and Catherine Gates. We're talking to Shalynne Jackson about what it really means to create an inclusive culture where everyone can feel valued and everyone can do their best. And Shalynne, I love, again, that picture that you left us with of Jesus being the example and the encouragement. So good.
It really is. And what I am hearing from you, Shalynne, number one, I just want to say God has you in the position he has you in on purpose for a purpose. My goodness, I love your heart. One of the, several times you have said, it's not easy, but it's simple. I'm going to, this may sound over simple, but isn't that the gospel? The gospel. It doesn't make all of life easy, but it's a simple mission. It is a simple gospel to accept and to allow into your life. And so I love that approach because, my goodness, I can't imagine on a daily basis the kinds of things that you deal with, but the filter that your heart for Jesus helps you, I'm guessing, to do that each and every day. So let's talk about, so I just wanted to shout out there for you, but what does it look like in your work to love our neighbor well?
So I've said a lot of these words already, but grace, respect, kindness, gentleness, empathy. Really, while I don't like to say the golden rule, because the golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated. And to me, it's the platinum rule, treat others how they want to be treated. In order to treat others how they want to be treated, I have to get to know them. I have to build relationships. And so what does it look like to love my neighbors? It looks like relationships. You think about an actual neighbor in the neighborhood. For me to best take care of my neighbor, I have to get out and talk to them, right? Like I have to get out and speak to my neighbor. And so I challenge people to do that at work, especially people leaders. Talk to your people, connect with your people, see what it is that your people need to succeed, because we don't all need the same thing to succeed, to create that sense of belonging for them. And watch how loyal they are to you after that. Watch the loyalty, watch the hard work, the productivity, the bottom line, the innovation, all of that be driven out of your willingness and desire to love them.
You really just kind of listed what we call the I Work for Him Nation, which is about, living that out, getting to know your coworkers, loving them where they're at, and then when they're having a tough day, who are they going to go to? They're going to go where they've been loved and accepted and appreciated. And then you get the opportunity to be Jesus to them. So I just want to put that out there because you can go to sheworksforhim.com and learn more about that. It's not a club to join that or anything like that, but it's just making that commitment in your work to do that and to pray for those coworkers each and every day. Catherine, why don't you wrap it up there?
Yeah. Shalynne, what I hear in what you're sharing too is make it about them, make it about the other person, really get to know them and listen, right? So that's really key. So this has been so amazing, and we do need to wrap up, which, this has gone so fast. But Shalynne, I'd love for you to leave our listeners with what verse from Scripture that you think really sums up the purpose of your work.
Well, I can't keep saying it, so I know they're probably like, you're going to say this again, but Mark 12:31, love thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Full stop, period. Not love thy neighbor if, not love thy neighbor, but love thy neighbor.
Yes. And your neighbor is whoever is in front of you, right? Whoever's in the next cubicle, whoever's at the next desk, whoever you comes across your path. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Shalynne, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. And I really hope our listeners find it encouraging and empowering, right? To have a sense of what they can do to bring greater inclusiveness and equity into their cultures at work. So thank you so much, Shalynne. You've been listening to She Works for Him with your hosts, Martha Brangenberg and Catherine Gates. We're Christian working women, helping other Christian working women to live out their calling at work as she works for Him.
As Christian women, we have many roles, from daughter, sister, friend, wife, and mother to analyst, accountant, executive, or educator. Is it possible to balance our roles at work and home in a way that honors God? The answer is yes, and our new book, She Works for Him, will help show you how. Written to celebrate, encourage, and equip women in the workforce, She Works for Him discusses the diverse experiences of today's Christian working woman. Pick up a copy by going to iworkforhim.com/bookstore. You've been listening to the She Works for Him podcast with your hosts, Katherine Gates, Nadia Dixon, and Martha Brangenberg. Please like us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube under She Works for Him. And to access any of the resources we mentioned on today's show, see the show notes at sheworksforhim.com. That's sheworks4him.com. This podcast was created to empower you to live out your calling at work so the world knows she works for him.